I do, do, do.
Da 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 day.
I do, do, do. Surely you could say it's amazing how everything is changing, and it's happening because of you.
It's all because of you.
Surely you could say it's amazing how everything is changing,
You could say
and
it's
it's
changing.
happening because of you. It's all because of you. All because of
I
you.
said it's all because of you.
It's all because
We're all guilty.
Guilty of what?
Guilty of being human.
Well, that's nothing to be guilty about.
That, well, you know, it's like some people say, marriage isn't just a word; it's a sentence.
Guilty of not.
And
Guilty of not knowing enough and not always acting on what we know.
yeah, definitely.
But
Well-
that's not a sin. That's just something to overcome, isn't it? Something
Everything seems to be something to overcome. But why do we associate any meaning whatsoever with anything that we do?
Because those who are wise amongst us have always sought to try and improve the human condition, which instead of wallowing around in ignorance is one of self-improvement. That's what friends are for. Pull you up, lift you up.
Yeah,
You don't let someone who you love slacken
yeah,
and degenerate.
yeah,
Hopefully you kind of keep them on the positive vibe so they can uplift.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. But like I say, you know, recently, I don't know, it's just,
Yeah, that's the thing. We're quick to forget and slow to act on, like I said, on what we know and should know. There's some of us who have that ignorance about them, that willful ignorance.
yeah.
That's a hard thing.
The solipsism.
How can you overcome that?
Solipsism.
Willfully ignorant, how can you be a friend to such a person?
It's hard, isn't it? Do you indeed recognise that friendship is it's an extension of self,
Only if it's
a giving of self,
Yeah.
a giving of,
Giving of self? No.
to a certain extent.
Ultimately, we're selfish and we want for ourselves. We've got to recognise that.
Well, that's the condition.
But-
But is that the one to be overcome, or is that the one we find ourselves in
We don't
and that we
want
desire?
friends who are going to always subtract from us. We want friends who are as self-reliant as what we want to be.
Honourable. Honourable, then.
We want friends who are better than us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a friend is. Someone who's better than us in what we truly know to be worthwhile and desirable. A friend who's more wise than you. Great. Learn from such a friend because they'll be doing you good.
Yeah.
And you want someone who's doing you good, not who's taking your good.
Yeah.
It's tricky because we've got to remember that selfishness isn't necessarily a bad thing
Yeah.
when it's positive.
Well, I'll stick a pin on that and I'll say two things. One, no, the word no is a positive word, and we'll come back to that. Yeah, the idea that somehow being selfish is better for us all. I'm going to have to ask for a bit more information on that.
Well,
I mean,
someone who's selfless has no self, has no foundation, has no.
are you talking naive and gullible, or are you talking
We're talking like
selfless to a normal degree?
It's something I've tried to learn for myself. I've been working with different thoughts and ideas about these things, and not necessarily going to go along with the grain that says selflessness is entirely good, because that's a very Catholic thing. Don't trust that for yourself.
It's like whose sin is the best sin,
Never.
to call themselves the one that should measure.
Catholic thing, which we should handle with tweezers and gloves, because you can't necessarily trust someone who
A habitat suit, almost toxic in its interpretations with people, amongst people, and amongst those that don't regard it as anything. I mean, me personally, I don't mind what people do in their traditions, so long as it doesn't hurt me. You've heard that always said.
Who is me?
You know.
In the larger sense, that self encompasses all of humanity.
So now we come back to what's selfish.
Selfless. That's selfish, yeah, because all of humanity reflects me and I reflect all of humanity. That's selfish. And I want what's best for myself, and I want what's best for that great reflection of myself.
Well, where to begin, eh? Where to begin?
If I'm going to be selfless and deny that I actually want good for myself and those who I identify with, which is quite a few people. Like I say, it's not necessarily a bad thing in wanting for humanity that good which I want for myself, because they're identical.
Yeah.
And I can't proceed with good for myself without encompassing the whole of humanity. Because every time I see someone who's in pain, I suffer. It reflects quite badly on me.
And maybe that's the answer to the original question I posed, because the question is, why have I been feeling? I don't know. Is it frustration? Is it anger?
Frustration, anger, yeah, those are common things right now.
Yeah.
I feel it a lot. Frustration, anger.
Right.
But it is a phase that we're going through.
Is it though?
Yeah.
Is it? Because I see we're surrounded every day by invisible forces, frequencies. Right? Frequencies. And as well, the human mind is, made up of frequencies. If you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, yes, a thought travels along a neuron. Right, and that's a frequency.
Not necessarily. We don't necessarily understand that the mind is a frequency.
That's a simple way of explaining it, because no one here has got the time to fathom it.
Something which is not physical and try to translate it into physical terms and saying that is the truth of things.
It's like the slit experiment. The moment you peek at what the mind is producing, it would change.
Yeah, those are all physical aspects of non-physical phenomena.
Yeah.
It's like
you're talking subjective versus objective.
What's happening in the brain? The brain is not the mind. The mind isn't necessarily even in the brain. It's not a physical thing. It's not. It's a translation of.
It's an effect.
It's not even an effect. We've got to just lay off what the mind is, but we can't necessarily translate into physical terms, put it that way.
All right, let's not try and explain the unexplainable. Let's accept something for a moment. Let's accept I am, and we certainly do have, fortunately for us, words and conventions that we can fathom amongst ourselves. I can tell you an idea and say apple, and you know what I'm talking about. So at least we could start a conversation. And when we say we know what we talk about, that's really what this is all about now. This is rediscovering what apples are. Rediscovering almost from the inside out and beyond. I know it sounds stupid because, everybody will tell you, oh, I know what an apple is. This guy's an idiot. I don't mean like that. I'm just trying to peek at the door, just trying to crack open the solution think to people bit by bit, letting a little bit.
People, I'm not even troubled about that. We're learning time. We're all learning.
Well, building up a tolerance, shall we say? Building up a tolerance for certain ideas is the healthy skepticism versus the gullibility and the naivety of being somewhere in the middle, so that we're teachable, not only able to teach, but teachable. Because without teachability, I think teaching itself suffers, because you're stuck in a mode. Nobody can
teach. Every one of us is going to be like
teachability is the same as saying change and state. Now check this.
Teach yourself. That's the thing. Teach yourself. Never mind teaching others.
Right. But I'm going to paraphrase Darren DOJ and a few others for a moment. Talk about church. Talk about state and change. But you might as well say church and state. The sense of change being a masculine power, okay? Not just limited to what men can do, but it's a representation of masculine power. Change being action, emotion being female, the thinking.
Why even say that?
Whoa! Just see where I'm going for a moment, and then maybe we'll grasp this point. We could go a little further.
But as long as we agree that you've just jumped to assumptions that masculine is changeability and feminine is stability and non-change.
Whatever suits you.
It doesn't suit me though.
All right. I'm just trying to get to the point though. If you disagree with the parameters I've just set, we'd have to discuss that, wouldn't we?
What if the feminine is more changeable and the masculine is more stable?
Emotions are just as changeable, but emotions by themselves don't affect
the sun in the sky,
external change.
Which the creator has put almost as a masculine symbol, whereas the feminine is the lunar symbol. The sun is constant.
Okay.
The moon changes.
Okay, I'll accept what you're trying to say there. You're saying that basically they are reflections, but one being the inner and one being the outer.
Why? Why even say that?
Just like female sexual organs are internal, male external organs, okay? Represented symbolically.
If you're talking about actual human beings, then it's both internal and external, the experience.
But we've got this thing called state, the intermediate, where state, representing government, is a fixed thing. If we talk about state, such as in solid, this table, it's a solid. The air, it's a gas. It's in a state. Now, it is changeable, we know that, but in its current condition, without some external influence, i.e. some kind of energy, some kind of action, some kind of movement, it remains in the same state. That's what government is. Now, what are we? We are change. Now, you've heard that. Haha, yeah. Everybody, cashing and coining on that phrase there. We represent change. But how do we represent change? We represent change in this current system, this current model, via the nervous system. Government, that which rules the mind, that which governs, yeah.
Government is like...
You can have your opinion on it. I'm just saying what its idealistic role is. Its idealistic role is it's a brain. We've already seen it even in the Bible discussed, can the hand do without the foot, etc., etc. We are the nerves. If we receive the pain in our fingertips, say we burn our fingertips, then it's up to the nerves to transmit that message all the way to the brain so the brain can do something about it. Now, you're talking about, but the internal human being has to make and judge for himself. Therefore, his government is himself. That is true. But we've also externalized everything that is internal. You see what I'm getting to? So if we want to correct that which is external, like you said, we must correct that which is internal. But how do you correct it without first overstanding the mechanisms? I'll let you speak in a minute. I just want to get this out so that we're all pretty much on the same page. The external mechanisms reflect everything that is internal. And when, just like in the human body, if your nervous system was impaired and damaged, you would not receive the signals and your hand would be burning in the fire. The brain would be unaware. Now, we, as humans, have not used the external version of that nervous system correctly. We've not sent the messages in the correct pathway. If you use the correct pathway, the messages will reach the brain. And then the brain can make a decision about that.
Jules, I think the whole thing is just...
Go on, you give me your Socrates anyway. I've said my piece for the time being.
Well, you should read maybe some Socrates. He writes about the state. He writes about government. He writes about, he talks about government is like being the captain of a ship. And who you want, even though the state ship carries
citizenship,
a lot of people, you want the best captain to steer the ship. Now, who represents the best captain? So that's one argument. The thing is, if you're talking about a state now, are you talking about the English state, the French state, the American state, this and that state? Are you talking about the current political institutions?
I'm talking from a metaphysical
are you talking about
point of view.
The English state when you're talking about the state?
I'm talking about it all, but to simplify it, let's talk about solids and how they differ from gases.
Let's not go away from any other point now. Are we talking about earthly governments right now and those?
If you want to talk about it applies to everything.
Is that what you're talking about? Is that what you're talking about? The state, and that the people of, say, the UK, for example, aren't using their capacity as nervous, whatever.
Yes, but I'm also talking about themselves. I'm talking about it all. It all relates.
Right. The thing is,
internal
everyone
and external.
right now seems to be living in a world government system. The world it is parcelled up into this and that state, where the people enclosed within that political border are governed by that class of people which forms the government. So you're saying that that's like the brain and the people is the body? That may be the case, but the thing is, none of those things are legitimate. Not on a godly scale. There's not a state in the world as a currently formed government, which, as far as I'm concerned, none of them have any legitimacy with God, as far as I understand it. So, if you're saying that the current government systems are not necessarily corrupt, but say they're not functioning properly, I would agree, because they're just.
Can I
They're not
interject
right.
a saying? Physician, heal thyself. You've heard that a million times, okay? But in this particular instance, we are all physicians. We can all apply a remedy, and there'll be an effect based on how effective that remedy is at solving the problem. Some things are better than others. This is what the whole journey for a lot of people has been about, discovering the best remedies, the best fixes. You know, do I use glue or do I use sellotape? Which is best, you know? And can we create a stable society that values the same things?
I think people want to live in similar sorts of ways for the most part, don't they? They don't want to. They want to live in some sort of physical security.
Yeah.
We're talking basic needs met
Mm-hmm.
and no harm done. Outside of emotional trauma, which you deal with every time you open up your heart to someone, which must continue because we need that. Yeah, we all want to live in some sort of physical security. Do we still want to have ownership of private property in the future? That's something we can sort out for ourselves.
That's a grey area for now.
Yeah,
we need to delve into some Gordon Hall before we start talking about private anything.
The basic thing that we don't want to be hurt. We don't want to be hurt. So we can translate that into a bigger rule that don't want to be hurt, don't hurt others. Right, okay, so leave the morality aside, all of those things aside. We do need a new set of ideas as to how we relate to each other as human beings in the world.
Yeah.
I think the current government system is wrong in that it identifies individuals according to these arbitrary political boundaries, which is just an idea. Englishness is just an idea. It's not a racial concept. It's just an idea.
It's not is it a universal absolute, in other words? Is it found anywhere else in nature?
It's just an idea. All of those.
It's an aberration.
Current national boundaries.
It's a figment.
And yeah.
An imaginary construct.
But people have believed in it because
they've believed in Superman all their life, mate. That's why we had that discussion. That was the parable I was using. Superman's a fictional character. You can gain some truths.
You can ask anyone, and no one will say that Superman exists.
Exactly. That's why I used it, because it's just as absurd, isn't it?
You don't believe in Superman, so who believes in Superman?
Well, who believes in state?
A lot of people do.
Why?
Because
it's just as fictional as Superman.
We need a way to relate to each other in that sort of term. We need some sort of government in that the idea is similar to a ship.
We need an external replica of the internal.
We don't want to be on a raft drifting.
But there's a series of questions that a lot of people out there I don't think have got, and one of them is one voice. If anything was to be done that united the human race, it could only be understood if one voice at a time is able to represent one idea to its fullest expression, and that is able to be comprehended.
That's fine.
By everybody interested in contributing to making that idea become a reality, because this is how we live. We live in a world where the idea, the thought, becomes manifest in a process of emotion, because it's still in the thought realm. You're still thinking about it and you think, how does that make me feel? And that is a lot of the times a problem presented by certain doctrines, certain religions, certain belief systems that have superimposed themselves into everyday life. They're the invisible walls of the Matrix, or one of those invisible walls. And once you start to see it, you see the code. You see the walls are made of code. The walls that you've created, made of words and thoughts and ideas that limit your perspective. That's what a wall is in physical world. So when you're dealing with the matrix, which is just a realm of mind, and anyone who's not that abstract just wouldn't have got it. They just, looked at Kung Fu. That's what they was impressed with, Kung Fu and special effects. They had no idea just as to how deep that rabbit hole really has gone, because we're still talking about it over a decade later. It's had its effect.
Like what? What's changed?
A lot's changed. A lot has changed. Every time a thought changes.
Say for example, I had an idea, whether of myself or of something else, but I had an idea which I wanted to communicate.
Uh-huh.
Now I can't force someone to accept an idea.
Oh no.
But I would like to ask that they consider an idea.
Yeah.
Its viability, its truth.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that idea in itself has only the power of an idea. But if someone considering that idea is also gauging it against currently existing physical phenomena and changing circumstances, and they see the truth of that idea, or it's the opposite of its truth, if they see that it's complete humbug and whatever, that's for the person to decide for themselves. But as long as they consider it.
Yeah. Do we actually have on planet Earth today any people, for example, that consider themselves to have a plan, let's just say, a vision, some idea of where they'd like to be, enough know-how of how to actually physically build it, whatever it is, or manifest it, and to get there? And I'm not talking like, for some people that might be a massive thing, like building a rocket. To other people it might just be digging a hole and planting some flowers. You got to have a plan for everything you do. Even if it's just a basic plan, I'll just dig the hole, I'm not going to write a script for it, I'll just dig the hole, put the plant in, there you go. Other people, they're like, right, they've got to script that out, they've got to do a test run, they've got to do, a million different experiments before they can actually arrive at the thing.
God's got a plan, I'd say.
Yeah.
That's the one I'm bothered about.
Well, that's the cop-out for a lot of people.
It's not the cop-out, because...
You're allowed to feel like that, by the way.
When I actually start communicating my idea,
Mm-hmm.
and I say my idea only because it's in my head, not that it's mine, like I generated it, then, yeah, that's all I can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm focusing on, and that's my plan. So I, for one, have a plan.
Yeah.
Whether it's my plan or like I say, it was generated
Mm-hmm. Well,
somehow else.
To quote Jacques Fresco, there's no such thing as original thought. What we call creativity is actually taking known elements and putting them together in different ways. So therefore, the basis of original thought and creativeness is that which already exists.
Yeah. But
that which is known, that which is truth.
As an idea, it's something that I have considered and I find truthful, in that it does correspond to certain physical phenomena, and it does express a bigger way of relating humanity to humanity than other things which I've considered. And I've considered a few ideas. I think this one's the best.
Yeah.
I also kind of find myself in a bit of a testing period for the idea, but the testing isn't of the idea. I think it's a good idea already.
Mm-hmm.
It's a testing of me to see whether I'm capable of communicating that idea now. Assessed from the dawn of creation. I'll soon find out. I guess everyone will soon find out.
Oh yes. Time is very short for certain things to happen. Just like spring and summer are a set season, and if you don't do your planting in those seasons, nothing's going to grow.
You all the time to say, for example, about stopping smoking, but the truth of all the talk is when you actually stop smoking.
Yeah.
There's got to be a time when I stop talking about wanting to
Yeah.
promote change, a positive, progressive change, and actually start doing it. That's what I'm waiting for.
Change is as hard as that, I reckon.
I think that's-
Change is as hard as stopping smoking. It's not impossible, but it's
just
damn hard, isn't it? If you don't want to change. Because really, a lot of people say, I want to stop smoking. But what they probably really mean is, I wish I could still smoke and not have the harmful effects. Because then everyone would be alright, wouldn't they? You know? Some people enjoy that. Like they find out, well, that's their enjoyment. And you're taking away a pleasure. Well, there's a lot of self-destructive pleasures like that. I mean, we're in, even now, you know, there's a celebration of the end of Prohibition.
The end of Prohibition?
Yeah. Well, Prohibition was brought in, you know, I think it was shortly after 1918, between 1918 and 1933.
A lot of things are still prohibited though, aren't they?
Oh, well, there you go. Prohibition is actually maybe a good example of how things can change.
Can change?
I'm not saying change for the better. I'm just saying the thing changed. And it's changed for a long, long time. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So change is possible, but
Change is relative as well, isn't it?
change is relative. Yeah, it is. It's relative compared to the state. The state is not capable of change. The state is the state. The state is what needs to change.
Well, if you're talking about the state, and the state doesn't change, I don't know. The state of water changes, and it's still kind of,
When energy is applied,
well,
when movement is
in one
applied,
state or another.
when action is applied, lots of things can change.
But if you're talking about a state based on falsehood, then yeah, it doesn't want to change. But
It doesn't want to doesn't mean it
doesn't mean that it shouldn't.
or that it can stay in the condition that it's in. Because, you know, something that's sick and dying might not know that it's sick and dying until it's too late.
It's resistant to the truth.
Huh?
A lie resists the truth. It means the end of the lie once the truth is established.
Mm-hmm.
So the lie is insecure. Because the truth, once established, yeah, okay, even truth can be knocked back, and the lie can reign again for a time.
Mm-hmm. That's why they say the bigger the lie, the more the people will believe it. Why come with small lies? Small lie. If you do get away with it, well, you've wasted one of your 3 magic genie wishes, haven't you? You might as well wish a big lie, you know?
Well, look at 911. It's just a big lie.
Yeah, they've gone along with it. And since that time, no terrorists have been caught because none can be found because probably none exist.
Well,
Let's start there. Let's start with how facts reveal.
That's not gone away, has it?
The idea that people are frightening other people is still on the earth, but when you look at who's frightening other people, it's not the so-called terrorists, it's the government.
Yeah.
And they're so paranoid and delusional, right? And fixed, stuck in this condition where their state is, they cannot change until change energy is applied. They're actually crying out for us. They're thinking, bloody hell, do we have to go on another one of these? Can't we just stop this? You know what I mean?
But lie's a lie.
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll let down the lie. Those people that propagate and live with a lie, if that's what they want, they can have that lie. It doesn't make it true. Anybody who wants to follow the lies, follow that.
Yeah, haven't we all been guilty
Yeah.
of that though? Haven't we all lied at one time?
Well, it's sitting on the fence.
How do we find
And the
ways
sitting
out
on the
of that?
fence has to stop now. People have to recognise that the indecisiveness of sitting on the fence does nobody any good. Another way of looking at it is like probability. Maths is a good way of exemplifying and showing, highlighting some truths, some basic truths. And here's how it works. Either I'm right and we should do something about it, or I'm wrong and I'll just look a fool. But I don't really care about looking a fool. And anybody that wants to call me a fool, well, I'm sure at the end of the day, it's not any skin off their nose, really. if I live my life and choose to live my life as a fool.
Well,
But the danger comes from the either I'm right or I'm wrong. Now, if it's just a gamble, looked at like that, it's 50-50. But what is the risk associated with each choice? If I'm wrong, nothing happens. Hooray! If I'm right, and something happens, and you could have done something that prevented it, you can't blame me. And that's all it is. It's the same thinking that's actually applied to, like, if you take your child to school most mornings and you got to cross a busy road and you have to analyse the traffic conditions and the weather conditions, etc. And you know, every time you step out the door, you're taking a risk. But you don't look at that in quite the same way as some of these other concepts that we're mentioning. And why that is because it actually affects the core beliefs of everybody. Either you're one way or you're another. A lot of people in this system have become inclined towards a negative, almost evil persona of themselves because it's a way of fitting in, it's a way of making more money, and therefore more money equals more of what they like to do, which is self-pleasuring. Yeah? Pure self-pleasuring. So going back to the idea of selfishness, that's how it gets fed. You know, that bit of the ego that exists, that loves that. If you feed that bit,
would you rather pleasure or displeasure?
I think we'd all rather pleasure. However, displeasure in equal measure could be a remedy also.
Of what?
Well, I'm sure there's lots of examples.
Making us more unhappy.
No, for example, I'll quote a small displeasure. How about fasting? You might be one of those people that eats too much or the wrong kind of things, and therefore your body's full of toxins and you need to sweat it out, train it out, maybe have a little fast. I'm not saying how long you should do it, but fasting does have an effect on the conditions of the body. The body goes into a different mode. And when the fasting ends, then comes the pleasure.
Well,
then comes the, oh, I've been waiting all day for this drink. I've been waiting all day for this food.
So you stuff yourself.
But that's a choice, you see.
No, it's not a choice. Because
no, when you fast according to choice, as opposed to starvation, that's not a choice, that's not fasting.
Well, how about just moderation?
You can call it that as well.
It's
you could call it a diet, but
it's displeasurable. You still get to eat a little bit of cake every so often.
Right. But what would you call the other moments in between that are not the uber pleasure, the highlight of the pleasure? I mean, just scratching your arm is a pleasure. But you're going to write to everybody, say, oh, I had a good scratch on my arm today. Loved it. Everybody, scratch your arm. Be a bit over the top, that, wouldn't it? I mean, according to most people, we're very in-depth people. We're, you know, very.
I don't know. So let's say a normal standard married man, yeah. Just to avoid any sort of arguments.
We've standardised again, but go on.
Yeah. Okay. So
sometimes we do this.
We're talking pleasures.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the main thing going for the married man, you assume there's a wife there. That sort of physical intimacy and pleasure you find in, say, the sexual act. Fine and good. Usually it lasts probably up to an hour. But
yeah, some people are already worrying.
No, I mean, the whole thing, the kissing and the cuddling and whatever, up to an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Some people more, some. But if you spent all day in bed with your wife, you'd soon
not get much done. Pots don't wash themselves, do they?
Probably wear yourself out.
Clothes don't iron themselves.
Would turn to displeasure. It's like eating that cake before. You might want a slice of it, but you eat cake.
Yeah. It's raw. It's too much of anything.
Moderation. So you have a little.
Yeah.
But you don't glutton yourself on it.
Right. Well, now, do you think we are actually a nation of gluttons, and we've become so accustomed to the gluttony that, I mean, you've got a government that's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Why be anything else? Why be anything else? Why not be completely hedonistic when you don't understand what life's about?
Yeah.
You're here today, you may be gone tomorrow. What's
Yeah.
the point? You don't know any better.
Oh, you know that.
Eat, drink, for tomorrow we shall die. But
Yeah.
for someone like myself now, who has a investment in the future,
Mm-hmm.
I've got to have a certain moderation
Mm-hmm.
because I'm considering not just the momentary aspect of a pleasure,
Mm.
because a pleasure is useful in that once it's sated, you can then get on with other things in life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the Satan of pleasures. Is it Satan or Satan? I don't know.
Sating of pleasures.
I know what you said, but I'm just playing on the words again because everything has an
if you're
effect.
going to exercise that pleasure so that you require more and more of that pleasure, it's like
Mm-hmm.
becoming hooked on the pleasure, and the pleasure is something which has a momentary aspect of it,
Yeah,
because what you're taking pleasure in
yeah.
is that this or that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking pleasure now in something broader, like the general condition of humanity,
Yeah.
and you would find pleasure in humanity finding a resolution to
Yeah.
its disharmony,
Yeah.
that's something which can last. I mean, if you it would take pleasure in understanding a truth of God, that pleasure can last for a while as well. But if you're talking this or that pleasure, this I find this aspect of eating
here's one of
or that
the
aspect of
things
that
though, because
pleasurable.
we can talk about God and we know where we're coming from. A lot of people straight away that's the straw that broke the camel's back. Therefore, in comes the solipsism. It's against their core belief. Something in their life is very offended.
I'm not going to argue
by
about God
your
to people
belief
who
in
don't want
something.
to argue about God. For me, God is a reality.
I think
It's a proven reality.
one of the
me.
things people need to check and look at, because belief is a big part of everything. It's a big part of
I'm not
law.
talking about belief. I'm talking about knowledge. It's a true reality to me. God is a true reality to me.
I accept that. I'm cool
argue
with
that
that.
point to someone who would like to argue about it up to a point, but if they're just arguing for the sheer, I don't know, of arguing,
Yeah.
and
For
you
the
can
sake.
see that they just want to argue rather than take in an idea and argue to themselves about it. But if they're just trying to make me stupid, I've got no pleasure
Yeah.
in talking to someone who's trying to wind me up. But if we're both together as friends now, trying to improve our state of understanding, which is what friends do,
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, I would have great pleasure in sharing my knowledge of God, not a belief in God, because it's
So is
truth and existing
it a
reality
case
to me.
of, because here's the thing about valuing knowledge and valuing who gave the knowledge and the author and trust and honour and all them things.
Like I say, I might have an idea, but is it my idea? It's an idea which I have in my mind, let's say,
Well,
as a shorthand for that experience which we experience when we're awake.
mm-hmm.
Because all of this is mind power. I don't know. Maybe it's something else. Maybe
But
it's just mine.
you got to be careful because the ego does tend to creep in when we least
Good.
expect it.
Good.
Nobody has the truth all the time.
Right,
When
right.
nobody abides in whole truth.
A humanity which is ego-less, or a humanity which has an ego identity
Mm-hmm.
as itself,
Mhm.
as currently existing. You've got superego, which, I mean, those
The ego and the super ego.
We can't even argue like we have a firm understanding.
The ID. Have you got an ID?
Because we talk about ego, id, superego, whatever. We don't necessarily know those terms like some people know them.
It's like subliminal, liminal, and superliminal.
I know subliminal because I have existed in a liminal condition.
Well, a lot of people have heard of subliminal. That which is on the subconscious level. It's not consciously there, but it is because it's within the framework of the message.
Liminal,
It's sent with the message. It's like the envelope.
Liminal, as I understand it, is boundary wise.
Well, that would be the envelope
So-
again, wouldn't it? But here's the thing: most people look at the contents of the letter, and very few people value the envelope in which the letter came, and that's part of its presentation, isn't it? Even that can have an effect, but we don't consider the effect the envelope has versus the contents of the letter as important. So I'd say the envelope would be having a subconscious effect. You've just received a letter, let's say, you come through your door. Some people have an effect on that. Reading the contents could be considered, that's liminal, that's there, it's it's presented in a way almost as a choice. Yeah, because let's look at it like this: every presentation is there for you to choose what to do with it. And then you've got superliminal, which is like Nike slogan: just do it. An order, just do it. Buy that, do that, get that. It's a command. A lot of trends these days, because in the 80s they had to try and convince people that that was what we desired, because people was more switched on. Now they've started to switch people off more and more. They can give commands to people and people will obey and not recognize that was a superliminal command given to you. Just do it and your life will change. You know, drink cause. It's the same thing. Just it's do that. It's not if you try this or would you like to try, sir, which is the old way of advertising. They were trying to sell it.
Just looking at the subliminal now, and you've got a word above it which is sublime. Now sublime relates to the Latin sublime is high. Whereas subliminal is two Latins, sub, under,
Yeah.
Limen, the threshold.
We could talk about sub-base.
It's a psychological term based on something being below the level of consciousness.
Right.
So that's subliminal. It's
In other words, a dream.
No, something which,
Almost a dream-like trance.
something which happens which we're not necessarily conscious of.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas sublime is something which is exalted or high.
Mm-hmm. Which could be regarded as what?
Well, just something.
If that was a thought, if sublime is also relating to
A sublime thought is
I
different. A sublime thought is different from a subliminal suggestion.
Indeed.
Thought suggestion.
Indeed. But the two words have a similar origin.
No, they don't. Latin. That's the similar origin. Two different, totally different words.
Interesting. Another bit of treasure from the
Sublime
dictionary.
thoughts, logical suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they may amount to the same thing, because a thought being something which may or may not origin in the mind, but may be suggested from some sort of almost external origin.
Well, I think thought, Jacques Fresco, again, he's hit the nail on the head. When we're having thoughts, we're thinking about things that are already known. Known things, known constructs. There's nothing that is unknown that I could present to you. It's just not in my framework. I just don't have the capability. Nobody has. So there's a lot of knowns. And what we're talking about is, even if it's an assumed, presumed, figmentary known, so that we can get along in the world. You know, and many things are, many of the structures we've created are. But they do have a tendency, if done in the right way, some of the things work. For example, post and letter. You know, you go to a post box, you put the letter in a post box and it arrives at its destination. As opposed to you going all the way to every single destination in person and taking that letter to them. It's a totally different process.
But for me, I mean, all of the problems of the world can be addressed using the proper tools.
I think the first proper tool is the mind.
If the tool is the heart, if the tool is the hand,
Mm-hmm.
it can be addressed. But
all of those
interested in-
tools, the whole human body is a holistic thing. The mind must be aligned with the heart. The heart must be aligned with the hand. And if you don't have those things aligned, you saw your own arm off, either mistakenly or on purpose.
Maybe the tool is the idea, and I'm comfortable holding an idea, which I think will help. What's maybe less comfortable is that the time's going to shortly come where we've actually got to communicate that idea.
Well, that is why we have to come together in ways that have not been done before, because
Cool.
the system has its way. It's already been put in place. It's taken 200 years, they've had, or hundreds of years, to implement, put in place a monolithic system. It's just everywhere, it's abundant. and everything's linked, and it's just their thoughts, their ideas. If we want our thoughts, our ideas, then we're going to have to start coming together and working on those things. Work on our thoughts, our ideas, you know? And it's got to be positive stuff that improves, stuff that gives answers. Otherwise, nobody's going to be interested in it, you know? It's not about talk anymore. It's about, right, who's the engineer? Build it. No talk, yeah? Because talk is cheap. Talk is trying. Talk isn't doing.
It's not really building so much. There's not much needs doing except understanding.
Well, that's what the discussion is. First of all,
Houses can be built. I'm not worried about houses, except in the terms.
Yeah, knowledge is there. We can build houses.
The many mansions which have been talked about in the Bible. That's what I'm dealing with.
If you was let's just
talk about kingdom of God on earth, basically.
Yeah. Well, it takes building.
The kingdom of heaven on. It just needs understanding. It's here.
Solomon built the temple of God, and he paid the workmen.
It's here already.
He paid them, and he fed them, and he looked after them, and they gave their best work.
Yeah, but Solomon wasn't necessarily the best king.
But he was still called the wisest. Nobody's got that. So symbolically,
he wasn't necessarily so wise either.
No man is. Symbolically, no man is as wise as God.
Messiah talks about a wiser than Solomon being here. I'm here again. I've always been here.
I think collectively that works. Individually,
look at Solomon.
not as much.
Read Solomon's story and walk away from it and ask yourself, was he all that wise? Because his kingdom was left after him. Didn't do that much good to the kingdom.
Well, you're right.
He raised up temples for.
He followed his wives. Started following foreign gods.
And that which is true and.
But then the Queen of Sheba came and she saw what was going on. She says, "Oh, well, the stories are true."
Yeah, she was impressed with the knowledge of a king and the organisation of his temple and this and that. But then if it wasn't an authentic wisdom, then it's better she leave.
Well, there's best. You know, there's good and then there's better and then there's best, isn't there? And that's how we've been progressing. You know, that's why we're able to make a comparison and say, oh, that's better than that. And simply, we just all want to get to the best. You know, we only take second best because money's come into the equation. Money is a restrictive force. You know? But again, it's a bit like the word no. No is a positive word. Why is no a positive word? It's an affirming of something. A state. This is a table. It's in a fixed state. Just words are not going to change it. Now, I say yes, that creates a whole set of conditions. If I say no, it also creates a whole set of conditions, and people are stuck on the word no. And this is what I wanted to get to before. Because I find that a lot of people are arguing and debating, and it's good, but the questions that they're sometimes asking fail to grasp even more important questions that are just as basic but fundamental. And here's one such example. People are arguing about the fact that they receive a benefit, and that's a positive thing to be focusing on, considering what benefits does to help people who cannot work. All right, let's get it into our head that there's some people who are born blind or disabled or whatever, who could not do a certain type of work and therefore need help and assistance from the rest of us. And that's where having a good heart and knowing God, that's what that's all about. However, those arguments or questions alone by themselves don't answer this question. I want a job, or I want something to do. Yeah, I want my own business. That is the solution. Being on the dole, well, I'll only get this amount of money, I'll get my housing paid for, etc., etc. Maybe that's good for some people. However, some people are more ambitious than that. You know, could take a lot and turn it into a lot.
Well, let them do it then.
This is the question that needs to be asked. Let them do it, yes. But there's going to have to be, a series of events. So an action would have to take place.
If someone claiming benefits, let's say JSA, for example, and they want to start their own business,
Yeah, I think it's universal credit now. I don't know.
Whatever
I
it
got
is.
out of that.
Let's say
Thank God.
they receive a certain. Is the word stipend? They receive a certain allowance fortnightly, say.
Yeah.
And if they can say organise that allowance so that it's fruitful and they produce increase,
Mm-hmm.
and they can have
Contribute.
sufficiency in that allowance,
Yeah.
and not seek, but rather generate extra, then yeah, they're probably well off setting up their business. But to say that of such a person, they're probably well on the way to organising their own business. If you're just talking about someone who is claiming benefit and it's not sufficing, and they're talking talk about starting their own business,
Yeah.
then they'll probably continue to claim allowance and continue to talk about starting their own business and never proceed to any direction except continuing the same, because that person is just all talk.
But
The difference between the two is proved in the existing state of that person. Like I say, the first person not only takes that allowance and generates surplus, but has it all organised in such a way that they could organise a business. And like I say, that person is already probably organising their business.
well, again, in a rereading of the Bible,
Someone who's just talk is just talk.
of
Can't recognise the
the
difference.
parable of the servants that were each given a talent. One had 1 talent, one had 5 talents, one had 10 talents. One with 10 increased and doubled. The one with 5 got 7, and the one with 1 buried it and was cursed by his master. And it was interesting reading what the master then said in that story, where he says, you know, you are a foolish and unwise servant. I would have preferred that you would have taken the money and even given it to the men that use it for usury. In other words, the loan people, the banks, that you had loaned it out and made a bit of interest even. So this is where usury was even spoken of. You would have even preferred that you did that than do nothing. So, I mean, that's just a small point, but it should provoke a certain thought that sometimes, even, because you're living in a system, and before you reinvent the system, before you reinvent fresh air and everything else that goes with it.
Please God, have more to do with other things than how
Yeah.
prudent a business person you are.
Yes. I overs that as well, but by itself is just one example.
Someone who's good at, say, you know, other things isn't necessarily good with money, but then that person probably still has sufficient. But someone who wants to give and can't organise themselves, that sort of person needs to look at themselves as well, don't they?
It's hard, man. You know, I've started my business, but it's hard, and the reason it's hard is because I can't do the work, but I just don't have an infinite amount of time. If I had infinity time, it'd all get done, no problem. I don't have infinity time.
Well,
The way business is done these days is either with machines or with human.
Is eternity consistent
endeavour.
with infinity? Doesn't eternity kind of like...
I don't have eternity to run a business.
it's now.
So being realistic.
It's the eternal now.
Being
which never
realistic.
goes away, but every time you open your eyes, it's still now because it's eternal. So you have the eternal now. How much time do you want?
The eternal now will always exist. Yeah,
So
that's eternal
take
opportunity
your
you're talking
time,
about.
Take your time because you exist
Yeah.
in the eternal now.
Yeah.
Just take
I'm in
time.
it. I'm
Take
doing it.
Progressive steps, though.
But that
You
doesn't
see,
mean I'm
you're
making
not
$1 million
progressive because
from
you're standing
it.
still and sat down and
Yeah.
whatever. And I don't mean in a physical sense, but in a progressing towards that
Yeah.
improved self, which we should be striving for. Improved in terms of knowledge, in terms of I don't know. It's also tricky because you can say patience is something we should be getting more of, but sometimes the simplest things just crack us back into like impatient mode. It's tricky.
But it spurs an action. Sometimes
it should
anger
spur a reflection.
with a positive outlet for the
A
anger
constant-
creates
if you recognise that
something.
you've been impatient,
Mhm.
at least have the decency to yourself to pull yourself up on your impatience.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to wait for someone else to tell you.
Yeah.
You should be able to You know what I mean?
Well, at the
that's
beginning
being a
of
true
this
friend to
this
yourself.
journey, people got angry, and they got angry with the system. But I hope now they've done some self-reflecting for a bit
Get
and
angry with
realised that
yourself.
they get angry with yourself.
Not
Because
even-
that change
not
that
even
you
get
was
angry with
looking
yourself.
for from state, which is a fixed table, or it's in a gaseous state, and he's unable to change without energy. Another way of looking at it, it's the brain, you're the nerves. You need to get on somebody's nerves, or maybe in somebody's nerves. Yeah? Just speaking gets into them, has an effect. The knowledge you have that you suppress could be the desired effect that everybody's looking for. Every little thing, every little idea could be the key. But it's not to be random or strange with it, you know. Like to have no desired effect, just to be, you know, bizarre or something. You know, we're not looking for no Russell Brands who just, you know, randomly.
Right, you still got
Oh, yeah, I've still got half the
Put a
tea.
fresh one.
You know, showbiz and gimmick work sometimes. And people like David Icke, coming from show business, used the metaphor of lizard people to get people's attention. Why? Because people are stuck in the zombie sleep mode. You're talking about using television, which has already been used a certain way for a long time to wake people up. Well, the problem is this: when a television is on, people, alpha waves drop, they go into sleep mode, and even violent explosions fails to wake them up out of the sleep. So now you have to say something that's so provocative, so outrageous, that people just say, he's crazy. He's talking about lizard people actually exist. I know why he says like that. Because too many people are asleep and would overlook everything he says if he just said it in a normal, informative manner, like someone reading the news. Even the way that the news is given to you, how do you respond to that? That framework for your response governs now your behaviour. And it's been going on for a long, long time. So how do we break people out of that? Some people who understand how show business works, like the Alex Jones of the world, who will shout and rant and rave and everyone will go, he's a lunatic. But didn't you pay attention? There's millions of people on the earth, and why didn't you look at them? You're looking at him. He knows what he's doing. He knows why he's doing it. He's analysed that to that point. A lot of people don't analyse to that point. They're stuck in sleep mode. We're talking as people who are awake and conscious and aware of the different forces like gravity that affect us. You know, the in-between spaces. That's what we're trying to fill. Those areas between the sleep and the conscious state. Because there's got to be a series of footsteps to get from one point A to point B. Point A being unconscious, point B being conscious. It's a series of baby steps. It's a series of, like the Bible says, you give the baby milk. You can't wean a baby on meat and bones. You have to give babies milk, and a lot of people out there are offended that you've come at them and treated their framework of knowledge and turned it into immaturity. You're a baby with that knowledge. That's what offends people. In the same way that people will say your framework for your faith, based on that dogma, is come across as being childish and not open-minded, but closed-minded. And that's what now the jobs of a lot of people in true faith, in true belief, who have the true knowledge of things pertaining to why it's come that way in their culture. If it's come through Islam, it's come that way for a reason. They speak that language. They live in that part of the world. Where did you think it was going to come from? But it relates to the same truth that will be found in the Christian world. It relates to the same truth that we'll find in the Jewish world and every other belief system that there is out there.
Most people have heard of God.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I know that'll
They've even heard of good.
that'll save me a bit of time when it comes to communicating my idea.
Yeah.
And like I say my idea. It's an idea,
Mhm.
which I seem to have.
It could be our idea. If we all come to one accord, this is the crux of the problem. Why there is not change in the way people want to see the change. It has to be done in a unified way. It has to be all for one and one for all. In that manner, no failure. Now, what are we trying to do? We're just trying to live. Sometimes the simplest things are the most effective things. You know, just coming together and sharing that moment globally. Like a Princess Diana moment, you know? Everyone around the world came together. 9/11, everyone around the world saw and perceived something. And in that moment, that power, that global consciousness, that's what needs to be achieved. Global consciousness.
Global consciousness. What good did that do when it came out to 9/11?
9/11 had to happen, I say, because people were asleep before that.
Are people asleep now?
Yeah, but 9/11's still there to be found. You know, not everyone's Neo. Not everyone comes out of the Matrix at first, but, you know, at the end, when you're given a choice now over what it is, and you say, well, that's that, and this is this. Choice. Merovingian, what did he say? Choice is an illusion created by those with power. He means this system. The system we're in now, the illusion of choice or democracy, is just another form of human farming, where we're not as oppressive. We collect your energy in terms of taxes and things like that, and give you the choice over what labour you choose to do, and therefore we can get your intellectual labour as well as your physical labour. But it's still human farming. Now, is human farming just going to stop just because we don't like being thought of as animals in Animal Farm?
I don't know. You can look at humanity as a garden.
Animal Farm is Animal Farm.
That God's concerned with.
Right.
Should he still be the husbandman? Yeah, of course he should.
Well, if you look at this story of Animal Farm, you've got the farmer who, to some extent, represents the government that's in place. And when the people, the animals, chase the government out, the government then goes talks to other governments, I suppose, seeking for advice, and eventually comes back and says, you know what? If I can't have it, no one can have it, kind of thing. In other words, they want to remain ever in power. What trips the people up is that they go right on reinventing the system that they'd taken so much time and effort to get away from. Meaning to say there's something ingrained about the pleasures derived from sleeping in a bed with sheets. You know? That, given the choice, even an animal would choose to live in luxury as opposed to living in poverty. But what is the reality about the world? Can the world amply supply everyone with a bed and sheets? Or is the bed and sheets just for those that write the rules? Because that is obviously how government has manipulated the situation, by taking what we thought was the rules and adapting them and changing them slowly over time, to eventually it's no longer recognisable from what was originally presented before the people, what became the urban myth of law. We thought we was living in a good place, and we are, but many people forgot that for a moment.
England a good place?
Hmm?
Is England a good place?
Yeah.
If it was so good, why do you think I want to change it?
If I could change anything,
Is England a good idea?
it wouldn't be something. To put it this way,
Is England a good idea? Is France a good idea? Is the US a good idea?
look where we come from.
Where do we come from?
We came from that. So, if it's still here, maybe it was a good idea for the time. Maybe it sufficed enough. Like, that container, that car you're driving isn't the best car, but you'll get a better car. You'll get a better container, you'll get a better name. You'll get a better voice, you know. It's just, that's where we've come from. It's the same like those people that are against the Bible because they read in it and they say, oh, it's condoning slavery. Oh, it's condoning this and that. No, it's telling you what man did. There's a difference. And if I didn't accurately predict or tell you what had happened in the past, you would have no idea, no framework for where we're coming from in reality. Is it a lie that men had other men in slavery? No. So in mentioning that men was in slavery in the Bible, is it telling us the truth about how we lived, or is it telling us a lie? And therefore, is that solipsism coming in again? Because people find that it's offensive. It's like you're trying to tell me to be like them people. In no way at all am I saying be like that. I'm saying just read it. Read it. Like, if you read To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, just read it. And bit by bit, you'll find out what the story's all about. People with the preconception, basically, for the sake of being cool, when there was a time when nobody reads the Bible, oh, you're uncool, what, go to church, you must be some kind of weirdo. All of that kind of thinking, you know, that Homer Simpson generation where it's cool to be thick, yeah? Well, that time's come to an end now because being thick doesn't help you. Being thick causes problems and trouble and strife and grief that you really could do without, you know, in the real world. We've got this attitude that man is a dumb object. Oh, he's dad. See dad in the advert, what a fool, what an oaf. Look at him. You know, dad's the oaf. Oh, here comes dad. You know, and if, like, you know, Mark Passio says man is the force of change, then what have they effectively done with that force of change? They've neutralised it. They've neutered it. You know, they took away the force of change. What did they used to do with men in the Egyptian Empire? They used to castrate them and turn them into eunuchs. Why?
Not all of them then.
No, but of the men that they did, why? Why were men chosen to be eunuchs and not women? Apart from the obvious. It would be a bit of a job. No, but females are more docile, so why not, you know, use what was it about the male figure then? Maybe the
point of that question, Jules?
It's about the effect.
Of what? Of castrating?
Not just castrating, but men then being used to do a certain job, having been castrated. Yeah, did they stop thinking? Did their mind suddenly go blank because they're now a eunuch? Or did they still know the things that men knew? If not, feeling sexual desires. I'm asking the question. I've never been a eunuch and I hope not to be one, but, you know, there's a reason why it was done like that. Male energy versus female energy. Used in the right way, it does certain things, it does certain jobs. Those who have occult knowledge of how the energy systems work.
Male energy versus female energy.
Because they do that. They've got us in a system of male versus female our entire life.
So let's break out of that then.
That's what this is all about. That's what we're getting to.
Would you
the
like
unification.
A Starbar? Oh, did you want fresh tea, by the way?
I'll have one in a sec. When the kettle's boiled, I'll have one in a sec.
So you will have one now?
Yes, please.
Yes, please will do.
Thank you.
Kettle's already boiled. I've already made my tea.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find a way of saying it. Maybe it's just a case of there's too much words, or people like to hear my voice, or I like to hear the sound of my own voice. I could very well be silent about it all because, you know, I found my answers. Like you, I've got answers in abundance. Do I need to ask other people's opinion? Sometimes. But invariably, quite happy with the state of my sanity to choose the right thing, you know, and do the right thing. But it's time to break out of the walls of my invisible cage and break down some more barriers, mental barriers, not only my own but others, because others sometimes have to allow you this idea of personal space or objectification of ownership, you know, working with.
Do you want a Starbar or do you want a twirl?
Whichever you're happy to share.
Do you want a Starbar or do you want a twirl?
I'll have a twirl.
Right.
Fine.
It was a question for you.
That's fine. I just wanted to be gracious, that's all. We need to get to
I'll get Chris to go with that.
Yeah, why not? We need to.
Cocktail.
Okay.
Not your favourite.
I suppose it'll do. Thank you. Getting from point A to point B, getting from where everybody's at, kind of there, but just not unified in a way that any
Just
productiveness is we need some manufacturing going on. We need some productiveness. We need some actual solutions because some people need products.
The solution is an idea.
Yeah, the idea starts there. We can make products, but we need to start locally sustaining ourselves. We need
ourselves in the world.
We need family businesses back in the country. We need ways to sustain ourselves. You can't magically invent a new system without a major catastrophe or a major upset. And too many people are objecting to that. What you need is an improvement.
People build houses already. People make clothes already. Why change all of that?
I'm not changing that. I'm just saying we need to have an input in that.
You're getting input in that. Who's stopping you?
Ourselves.
So what are you looking to me for?
I'm not looking to you.
With an idea of how to have humanity relate to itself in a meaningful way.
That's what it's all about.
That's not to do with starting new businesses.
Business is part of it.
That's not even my concern.
Well, that's how your mindset looks at the world. You probably don't view jobs and income as important as maybe some other people. But to balance it out now, I'm talking about that going alongside what you just said.
Now, if I tell humanity and I show humanity that there is actually a God,
Right.
a real and existing God, how they go on in light of that knowledge is something they'll have to work out for themselves. Hopefully, they will recognise that since there is a God, an actual and existing God, they may want to do a little better in terms of compassion.
There comes a point when
If they don't, then that's between them and God.
every parent wants to teach their child, but there comes a point when you have to trust the child to make the right decision. I'm not saying when that age is,
It's time for humanity
but and every human being must come of age.
They need to grow up into children.
But the ritual, the tribal processes by which people are given the parameters, the set of information that determines. For women, it's long been considered. I'm not saying it's the only one that their transformation is the onset of puberty, from becoming a girl to a woman, and people seem to be okay with it. I don't know if that's 100% true, but in terms of its effect, but that's what's been given to us. For men have to make a choice about what they're going to be and who they're going to serve, so to speak. They have to give themselves a quest. Is it for family? Is it for themselves? Is it for community? What's it for? And those things must be brought together in an alignment whereby those that are cohabiting, coexisting together and rely on each other's strengths to live a fruitful, prosperous life. Money is a tool. Money is a tool though, and it's being used to oppress people, good human beings, and that will end when we choose it to end.
I'm not going to legislate about domestic arrangements too much.
Many of them just using a framework of ideas to give people a starting skeleton with which to pose some of their own questions and their own ideas. It's Lego movie. It's the great architect who just takes any Lego piece and builds whatever he wants. And it's all good. Versus the rulers of those worlds who just want this with that and nothing else. That's state. That's fixed. Changes the people.
Well, people are like a vine. if I provide a trellis,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully it's good for the vine,
Mhm.
good for me. So there's to it.
Mm-hmm.
Grow up the vine. Use it to increase your stature,
Mhm.
your proximity to that which is sublime. Or, don't. In which case, we read certain parables of plants turning away from that which is good and you uproot the whole bloody lot.
Words are so important.
But, hopefully it'll recognise what's good for itself. And
Words are like miniature worlds, aren't they? Each word could cause an effect. So positive or so devastating. And we've got to be careful of the framework of everything we choose to frame everything in. We use the word have a debate.
certain things.
Have a discussion.
Certain things
Discourse.
are negotiable.
Discourse. And then shun. Yeah? Shun. Does that sound like something we want to have? A dis, a cuss, and a shun? Almost like percussion. Like it's there. Anyway. Maybe
Rather than attention and solution.
Maybe that's a stupid point to make.
Right. Walking dog.
Yep.
Right. Flash.
So, the impotent Flash,
Yeah.
like the eunuch.
No. No problem with that. I relate to that.
Is that... Why? Why would you relate to that?
As a man on a mission, duty first.
Good.
I don't have duty towards a wife. I shouldn't be looking for duty to a wife right now. I've got a higher duty, higher purpose.
After.
Same with Flash.
Oh, I'm sorry.
High purpose.
I heard about your
They've not done it like the comics.
She
Okay.
loved you very much.
But taking it as it is, why is it like that? I feel it's because I'm going through something like that and it must reflect my reality.
Well, they obviously don't have any idea what your reality is like, but something...
God does.
Yeah, but like all these fictions, they present things that are familiar. Just like when people touch on the truth, the frequency of which truth is in
There's a
contact.
place in the kingdom.
You'll never have a straight line where you are always in contact with the truth, but there's truths, and these truths that make, oh, that's true. Yeah, I relate to that. That's what I think's going on, but I don't relate to impotent at all.
Sure looked like you.
There's levels of impotence though, isn't there?
Yeah, and I don't mean, necessarily with kids or anything. Like, I'd say, having a power and not being able to use it.
Defended you.
Well, being unable to fulfill
Everyone told me
the
that you
Father's
bring
first
nothing but
commandment,
danger.
Yeah,
My father,
like be
Barry,
fruitful and
Eddie.
multiply,
yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
listen to them.
and
I
having to
never
have
listened
patience
to them.
in regards to that.
But now it's time I did.
There's many forms of fruit and many forms of
Don't
being
contact
fruitful,
me anymore.
prosperous.
But then if being fruitful and multiplying on my level, that's spreading the idea and having all become as one, having all become as I am. So
Well,
that
if everybody
that
didn't
could
have
be-
children, though, that would be
it doesn't
an
matter.
empty world in no time.
Once we share the same understanding, we're all the same. What does it matter if I have children or not? If, first of all, there's abundant humans in the world already, but secondly, brothers and sisters have had children. So, genetically, that's been carried on.
Yeah. Why is it the supervillain's story is so much more intriguing than the hero's story? Like going back to that
Because
they have
villain's more freedom of
character, freedom of
action,
range.
whereas a good person has to remain good.
Their actions are predetermined.
There's a lot of scope when you're not bound by the good.
Yeah, makes for an interesting story, doesn't it? The story would be boring.
I'm cold.
Oh, who's this now? Fireman. That's how
Well, I'll just read from the start. Thus saith the I am. Keep ye judgment and do justice, for my salvation is near to come and my righteousness to be revealed. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the son of man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger that hath joined himself to the I am speak, saying, the I am hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, behold, I am a dry tree. For thus saith the I am unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and chooseth things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in mine house, and within my walls a place and a name better than of sons and of daughters. And I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the I am, and to serve him, and to love the name of the I am, to be his servants, everyone that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant. Even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar, for mine house shall be called a house of prayer for all people. The I am, that is the I am, which gathereth the outcasts of Israel, saith, yet will I give others to him, beside those that are gathered unto him. All the beasts of the field come to devour, yea, all the beasts in the forest. His watchmen are blind, they are all ignorant, they are all dumb dogs, they cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, looking to slumber. Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They all look to their own way, everyone for his own gain, from his own quarter. Come ye, say they, I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant. But basically, yeah, being a eunuch in this time, in however way you understand it, impotence or whatever, well, there's other passage would say, be still and know that I am the I am. So the everlasting now is the everlasting now. That's a long time.
Well, I want to take it right from the base of certain people's understanding, and that is, they'll look at what you just said there, and especially the way you said it, because to give time through, obviously you know, people should really read things in their own right, in their own time. To give things meaning, to allow them time to just to absorb that and to reflect upon it, you know, give it a bit more meaning.
All is welcome to the feast.
But before we even get to that, there's some people say, what a load of crap. And they'll say that, and you know, no one can stop them from saying that. But
it's open to everyone, but those who choose not to come, am I going to force them?
Well, the thing is, I find this strange. They'll want to have a debate about that which they've never read. You understand? So that in itself should be an eye-opener for themselves. You want to talk about that which you've never read? Or you want to listen from somebody who has read it? You know? Well, you don't want to listen from someone who has read it because you've decided it's not good enough to read without reading it. Or you've read it, and because you didn't get that, no one else is allowed. You know, the ways that people give themselves reasons to stay in a state and not be flexible. Not be like, as Bruce Lee said, you know, like water. Flowing, or like that reed that bends in the wind. Yeah, he said that, but you know, be like water, you know. That was his principles, philosophy on his martial arts. Which
I remember his something like pointed the finger at the moon. Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will miss all the heavenly glory.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's what people do. They find the point of interest that matters most to them.
Let me think.
Especially when it's an emotion.
Feel. Emotional, what is it?
Emotional context.
Emotional context. Emotional context.
And yet, at the same time, yes, emotional content. At the same time, balance it. Can't be totally on that, or you're out of balance, out of step.
I don't know if you said too much about that. I don't remember that too much.
Oh.
But there are other things associated with Kung Fu, which have mentioned rivers and bend like a... That was even in Dune. there's some interesting things in Dune.
Yeah, well, like you keep saying, there's nothing new about our ideas. They're the same ideas regurgitated. They're new when we find them.
I don't
When
know,
everything is a journey of
maybe
self-discovery.
they start off as kind of like a rough-hewn thing, and over time they're carved out more and more fully.
Yeah,
But sometimes you get chips and splinters off this rock which form ideas of their own.
yeah,
So they kind of like share the origin almost, but they've formed a splinter group.
yeah. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But we should still be looking at the. I mean, in terms of ideas, yeah, of course they get refined over time, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they come to mean other things as well, and you get the same word.
Yeah, but here's the thing: motivation versus the fixed state of sitting or lying down. You know, typing on a keyboard. That's nice and safe. That's easy. Keyboard warriors, as they say. It's important that people have discussions. It always is, but there are other ways that we can help effect change. Change is a doing word. Change is an action. It's sweat. It's hard work. There is no easy change. Anybody expecting easy change? Well,
No.
they're not. To me, they're not living in this world. They're living in a world that they have a fantasy about. You've got to start with the real. We can get to things like
An acorn doesn't change into an orange tree.
just because
But
you
from a
want
state
it
of being
to.
an acorn, it does kind of change into a oak tree.
Yeah, but there's energies going into that. You're not that.
And there's hardships along
that
the way.
thing.
What if it's nibbled out by a grazing animal when it's still young? What if it don't even make it to that? What if it's taken as an acorn and nibbled by a squirrel or something?
Therefore, everything is blessed. And if you are blessed to be
What
whole.
if it falls on rocky ground? What if it's
Mhm.
this, that, and the other? But
Yeah,
then
well,
that's
we're
the-
casting
that's-
pearls before swines
well,
every
that's-
day,
that's
and they're gobbling it up.
tears in sowing in the field.
You cannot do it any other way. If you want to water the wheat
But some-
and tares are in the midst of it, then
Some
you end up
will
watering that
fall on
as well.
fruitful soil and multiply and give fruit.
Yeah,
And
because such is the state of the world. It's an untended garden.
Well, such is the
Man's
state of the
mind has
word.
been untended for so long, or been tended by programs that actually cause weeds to grow instead of, and thorns to grow instead of, fruits and things that are prosperous and profitable to everybody. And people accepted an easy life. With the easy life comes the condition that you find in state. If you want the freedom that people claim that they want, it's not free. It comes with hard work, loads of it. But there's a surety in working for yourself, and a certain sense of knowing that you can still do this.
propaganda.
Propaganda?
It's propaganda.
All right, well, everyone's entitled to have a bit of doubt every now and then. That's healthy as well. But if you're going to do something, you do it, don't you?
Yeah.
There's people that open up businesses, and the businesses might not be doing the best in the world, but they are there every single day trying. And just being there obviously creates the opportunity. If you're not there, if you're not in it, you're not winning it. You've got no chance. You see, one to another, human beings
Tea or
should be alright, maybe a bit of hot water. Human beings towards each other, care is an important factor. I think too many of us can give lip service to the state of mentality, the mental, emotional state that is required to be truly caring. We can assume the guise of mild-mannered people when inside, really, there's a bunch of turmoil, a bunch of unfulfilled reasonings, that have been fully resolved. There's no unity between the thoughts and the actions. Do you know what I mean? There's no alignment between the truth internally internally and externally. We know this. That's why by living the lie and propagating the lie in our heads, it just breeds not just a psychopathic nature, but you know, there is no prosperity in lies, in telling lies. There's none. You can't bank on it. The prosperity that comes from lying, and those that sit in the power to use lies, has actually come from those that didn't lie. You know, and they are basically relying on the fact that those that don't lie don't ask the right questions. Yeah, rely, keep relying on. Yeah, rely, resell it. Yeah. It's all interesting. It's not to be fearful of, or it's to ask that question. Just like, again, someone today started talking about contrails versus chemtrails. You know, I've had that discussion so many times. Either you accept it or you don't. But here's the thing. Nature doesn't lie and physics doesn't lie. Water evaporates at high altitude, low pressure. Simple as that. Nothing about physics has changed from 1980 to 1990 to 2000 to now. Physics isn't reading a book and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to change just so that everyone can be impressed that I can change the laws of physics and make water linger, when it's clear for everybody who's got a brain and who's not lying, that's a chemical. It's hanging there in the air. It just hangs there and it spreads out. Water vapour doesn't do that. There's some new phenomenon occurring. Right? And just saying, no, it doesn't exist and you're silly. You know, it's just pathetic. But I want to move beyond even all of that, because whether they like it or not, we're going to have to do something about that, aren't we? So what do we propose that we do about it? Well, who's doing it? Who's doing it? We find out who's doing it, and we go directly to them and say, you don't do that anymore. Simple as that. Because if you do it anymore, there'll be consequences.
What is it they're doing?
Spraying things out of the backs of planes in the sky. People are probably going on holiday, or maybe nobody's going on holiday. Those are just planes that are owned by government and just fly it over. Military test. Maybe they know what they're doing, maybe they don't know what they're doing. But you know, the observed effect to the people on the ground is that that's not how things were. That's a new thing, and people who are just saying that are either too scared to tell the truth, try to cover it up, yeah, or because they just don't have enough brain power to figure out an answer. Say, well, what do we do about it? Give up and go into this capitulating defeatist mode. You know, a true slave who just wants to keep his head down and get on. But there's no getting on with such a thing. You know, that's toxic. Someone's pouring poison into the air. It's not acceptable. And we find out who those people are and they stop. Simple as that. And there's many, many ways to make them stop without being violent. One is to ask. That's the first one. You know? But until people realise that the approach is really as simple as that, it's that case of, oh, what if it don't work? Well, then it won't work. You need to start believing in the things. It's that case of, oh, it didn't work the first time either. Because, you know, there's many things. When people tried to build rockets, do you think the first one they built worked? No. You think the first car that people built worked? People have had to try again. When it comes to solving problems, we're not very good at that. We can stumble onto things all the time. But actually figuring it out.
The thing is about rockets, though, when they were being invented, there were some people who prayed that they would work, and there were some people who prayed that it didn't work.
Yeah.
There's a difference when all of humanity can be united behind a project.
That's the thing. Can you imagine such a thing? All of us together in one moment, in one alpha wave. Everybody's the same. Everyone thought the same peaceful thought. And then, even better, acted upon the peaceful thought and created the peace, created the prosperity they're actually claiming that they want in the world.
Under my benevolent regime.
Everyone has a time in the sun. A living dog is better than a dead lion.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, if you're talking about character, there's plenty of people, by keeping the head down, by being solipsistic, remain a living dog. Because there's plenty of dead lions. Yeah, history is littered with those that tried to create change and got killed for doing that. But different time now.
So it better be a dog than a dead lion.
This is what people are doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that point went.
Everything is just a singularity of focus. Every word takes infinite into finite and makes a singularity. You know, that singularity, what we call thought, opens up a brand new multiverse. That's what it's about, you know. We create reality through choice.
Yeah, I think I'm more of a living man than either a dog or a lion.
Yeah, it's just a metaphor so we can better grasp certain human conditions, certain characters.
And who is it better for and who is it worse for? Is a living dog better for, say, I don't know, a fox?
If the Bible sought to actually
Or a
answer
cat.
some of the questions that are then posed,
fleeing slave, or some creatures in life would probably wish that the dog were dead than living.
True.
And then again, better a living dog than a dead lion, did you say?
Oh yeah.
Well,
I didn't say, the Bible
if
said
you
it.
didn't have such things as a dead lion, then how could you have Samson's proverbs about out of the strong comes sweet?
Ah well, many people have got their opinions on that. Some would say that's a cruel.
There's times for a dead lion as well. So there's time for a dead lion, a living lion, a dead dog, a living dog. There's time for all things. One of my
Food
forebears said that.
for thought. Feed your brain, and then your brain will go up strong. Lift weights with your brain. You do that by thinking complex things. You do that by bringing it out of yourself. Bring the idea out. Work with others and help them to bring their ideas out if you have no ideas. That's what it's about. It's about building the solutions. Solution think. It's about building.
No,
It's not about staying in the same
It's about
place.
understanding before you start building. Understand.
Right, well, if people are there, they're ready to start building.
No,
If they're not there, like we're all at different ages.
Better not build.
No, well, we're all at different ages. You can't expect the child to know what you know. So that's the way it's always going to be. And you accept.
We can't build anything unless we have the accord.
Well, those that have the accord, birds of a feather, flock together.
The accord and not the understanding, then better still not to build.
When the birds fly south.
Many people can make light work of making a flipping total large disaster.
Yeah. Well, talking about it is one thing. Make sure you're not with a bunch of fools when you're trying to do it. But you got to go out there and try and find the people as well, because they're not on your doorstep. That's not how the world is.
The people will
But we have the tools now to bring people together en masse. But the people have to recognise.
People together as a need.
People- The people will have to recognise truth from non-truth. Yeah, they have to make the choice themselves.
Right.
Can only show them the door. They've got to walk through it themselves.
We're really not worried. I mean, we're talking tipping point of quite only a few people that's required.
Exactly.
So I ain't worried about that. When it's time, it's time. It should be shortly accomplished, and we can all move on into
A good idea is just a good idea, and it catches on. That's what we're talking about. Good ideas. Good ideas catch on. It's not a case of change the world. Get your good idea out.
It's a case of change the world.
Yeah, but you don't change the world first, and then the idea, comes out. It's the idea that changes the world,
Right. Yeah, like I say,
and that's what it's about.
understanding before you start building.
Yeah. So that's all we're doing.
Don't need another tower.
But now is the time of the gathering. Yeah, the gleaning of the ripe grapes. Yeah. And the separating of there's got to be a separating of wheat and tears. There's a process by which sifting occurs, and those that know themselves,
That's personal scale. That's interpersonal scale. There's a
whether it's subjective or objective,
there's a
people that
sifting
know
inside
themselves
people.
know themselves.
That's all right. Sifting's for all of us. We'll get.
Yeah, discernment. Every word, every information, you gotta discern it from something else. Otherwise, you're not using your brain. Yeah. Like that robot that used to ask the question and say, use your brain. People got to use it. Otherwise, why have one? Why learn to read and write and leave school and never ever write again? That's stupid. Especially when the remedy for a lot of us is using that skill of reading and writing. Look how much has changed because people are starting to read and write again. That's an ongoing thing.
What's changed? What are you talking about?
A lot has changed. A lot has changed.
When did people start reading and writing?
Well, recently there's been a lot of reading and writing between the right people.
What do you mean recently?
Recently.
Like what? 10 years? 20 years? 15 years?
Well, I can't put a date on it.
Well, put a rough estimate. Is it?
I'm talking about in the recent decade, in the last 10 years.
You think in the last 10 years people have started to read more?
Well, they've had access to knowledge as well. The internet has become more and more open.
It's always been books, but how many people read them?
Well, that's the thing. You have to buy a book. You have to have money to buy the book. The internet, because of the virtue of the fact that a lot of the information is free.
It still doesn't get read.
Well, sorry for them.
The internet and people's social.
I'm sorry for them.
Social networking. Well, that's still not necessarily reading. And people would rather watch a YouTube TV thing than actually.
Well, that's why I'm gathering the people on YouTube, because, you know, a picture says 1,000 words, and hopefully.
So why read if you just have pictures and moving pictures?
Well, because
so I'm just
unfortunately people are lazy and don't want to do the work. They want an intercessor. They want someone to do it for them. That's why they
read in the last 10 years than before.
This is why so many people are waiting on Jesus. You know.
Well, it's.
Because they believe that there's going to be a second coming of a fleshical man.
Right, well...
Without even understanding how man is.
It's not pronounced Jesus, yeah?
Whether it's Jesus or
you can't come to
Yahweh.
You can't come to me with that. Jesus
right, we're not... Message is more important than messenger.
No, it's
That's
not,
what I deal with.
If you don't understand the name, then if you can't call them a name, then why should I even address it?
That's a sticking point that really has no relevance to the solution.
Really
so it's a sticking point.
It's a really easy name, but don't come with Jesus, because that's not my name.
That's a sticking point.
It's not a sticking point.
It is. If you accept I've just said Jesus and you know what I'm talking about, or you become one of those that is just stuck in Maya.
That you're understanding what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I accept it. I'm just saying you've made a sticking point. It's neither here nor there.
So you understand my point?
It's splitting hairs.
It's not splitting hairs. It's one of the main points of the whole bloody thing.
That's your interpretation. To be broad-minded enough to allow for the differences.
I'm not having that Jesus stuff. Jesus is something else.
How do you bring people together that have natural differences anyway?
People can understand.
Like language, when you make such small issues a sticking point. Love is the law, not Jesus.
I only need so many people.
Not Jesus, love. Not Jesus, love. If he came with the name of Bob, right, everyone would be arguing and say it's Bob or Robert. Rubbish. Rubbish.
Whatever other people argue about, that's not my concern.
Yeah.
But if I'm here,
there should be no arguing.
And don't call me Bob, because my name's not Bob.
You're you. If you accept that, I'll say that you're in God. That's great. I accept that. That's fine. I accept you as who you say you are. You're saying you're that. Fine. Some people might start to judge you critically because they feel they have a natural right to, because you proclaim something.
Who are they?
Who are they?
Themselves who they are. And if it's not the same answer that I would come with, then they need to maybe think about life.
The trick everybody needs to learn is how to make peace with your enemy. It even says in the Game of Thrones, well, my lord, by the very nature that they are your enemies, those are the ones you make peace with. One does tend to make peace with your enemies, not your friends. So really analysing the statement.
Is it
the enemy must be reconciled?
That type of understanding to say better a living enemy than a dead friend.
And take that one step further. Because that's really what we're dealing
If
with.
you understand the consequences of that statement, I don't want dead friends.
Take that. No, but take the whole consequence of that. Better a living enemy than a dead friend. Better a living friend than a dead enemy.
An enemy can be converted.
Better
into
a living
and still live.
friend than a dead enemy. What about that? Because he's a living friend. If he's your enemy,
enemy
you vanquish enemies,
No,
don't you?
An enemy can be turned into a friend. It's not alchemy necessarily.
An enemy is close to an amoeba. Joking.
There's still hope for a
Single
for a living
protoplasmic
enemy.
thinking. It's
And who are they an enemy against? They can't be an enemy of me.
that is Manichaean thinking.
They can't
Once
be an enemy of
again,
me.
you know,
They're an enemy
with
unto themselves.
the enemy is yourself. The enemy is the inability to overcome self and reconcile an enemy into a friend. All human beings have similar characteristics. We'd like to believe that they're the enemy and they have the monopoly on the evil and we've got the monopoly on good, but it's not so. So therefore, our splitting hairs over who's got the right Jesus or Messiah or Muhammad, rubbish.
I mean,
Rubbish.
what are
That
the-
just shows how intellectually
what are the enemies-
childish.
What are the enemies of mankind?
Childish thoughts, childish behaviour.
Not childish, because that can't be necessarily argued. Something the best understood as a child.
It's not about
So-
arguing. You go to court and argue, you lose. You go to court with an agreement.
The things which are enemies of mankind, things like ignorance, complacency, violent,
Indifference, would you say?
indifference. Well, indifference goes with ignorance, doesn't it? Well, no, let's let indifference.
Is it?
have its own place as well. Indifference is.
It's a focusing on state. This is a gas. This is a
It's not
solid.
caring, isn't it? So, yeah, not caring is different from ignorance, which is not knowing. So ignorance,
And
indifference,
apathy,
complacency,
which is the
apathy,
opposite of sympathy.
it's sloth, that use the easy ones.
Laziness. We're
Covetousness.
talking the 7 deadly sins. We're talking
let's not limit it
about.
to 7. Let's put that sort of.
If it's a million,
those are the enemies
7
of-
just helps us to
those
remember
are the
it.
enemies of mankind. So how can you be my enemy? Like you sloth in ignorance. Indifference.
Right,
So you
right.
can't be my enemy.
Right, but no, it's the eternal unvirtues versus the eternal virtues that are the enemy.
And that battle goes inside a person.
Yeah.
So you can't be my enemy. You're an enemy
The
to yourself,
battle is not
or
against flesh and
or your
blood.
own salvation.
The battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual wickedness in high and low places. High places might be religious places.
Might be mind.
Yeah, the highest
places,
forms of mind
body.
versus the
So-
lowest forms of mind, and
Well, it's mind and body, isn't it?
but all coexist. You cannot have one without the other. To be
But
eternally
that
on
goes
heights,
in your mind and in your body.
eternal heights is no good for anybody.
Why?
You know. Well, that's like the intercessor, isn't it? That's again Moses. You go do it. You go on the heights. You go up there. No one else can go up there with you.
Eternal heights might be good for Moses. It's not necessarily good for the people
Mm.
on whom, they've come to.
Is a people based on Moses? That's why Moses come with the law, and then they'll criticise Moses. Say your law's Moses.
Moses knows God.
Well,
The
according to
people
a lot
kind
of
like need to be
people,
schooled, and that's why he's got to come
Exodus
down, go down
21.
and see what the people are doing.
Exodus 20, 10 Commandments, Exodus 21, a whole new bunch of employment laws which talk about servants or slaves,
Yeah,
whichever you choose to wish to believe in.
We're not
Are we accepting the fact that
we're not doing
that
we're
man
not doing
did that and thought it was okay
We're
at
not-
that time? He thought it was okay to do that at that time.
Right,
We're now at this time.
it's not-
Does that show a progress? Or any
People are still doing
difference?
it. People are
Any
still doing it.
change?
Yeah, wickedness
occurred.
At the beginning, wickedness is doing it even now, but wickedness in the future might be avoided.
Yeah, but I think the nature of where wickedness is and what provokes it, the root of evil, is one and the same for all eternity. Just as the roots of good, the eternal virtues, are one and the same for all eternity, and there's going to be no new answers. Anybody expecting new things They already knew it, but it's how to make it all fit together. How does this piece fit that piece? How do we fix our lives? It's got to be done together. Someone's got to say, all together now. You know, one voice. Without one voice, chaos, mate. You know, cacophony of just screeching and baboon noises, because you're not going to get intelligence from that. You know, you need an architect. You need a builder. Yeah. Who do you think those architects have been of world things before us? Freemasons. You're criticising them? Well, go build better. Simple. Those who can do. Those who can't, try to teach, and, you know, got loads of teachers babbling with knowledge that is all second and third hand. None of it is first hand. They're assuming it's correct. They talk about lessons, but people are less on. Yeah? And we want to be people to have more. And then someone laughed and said, "Oh, so you want to be a moron." A little joke there, but I you know, people need to be enlightened. But the word less on, just thinking about that, when you go to school, we can associate with that because we know that that's been done to a lot of people. We're trying to now enlighten people, and the true enlightenment is that to which they already have access to, which is knowledge of self, knowledge who you truly are, where your heart is, where your feelings are. You always follow your heart no matter what. Really? So we've got to be careful what we put in our heart.
That's not enlightenment, really, is it?
We have thoughts, but the heart rules that. The desire for things is coming from the heart, really. And there's certain knowledge that is contained within the heart that's not in the head. You know? There's certain feelings you feel and you emote, and the centre of which is not in your head. When you feel hurt of the kind of loss, you know, when you lose people, you feel it in your chest. Yeah, you can think about it, and that has certainly an effect on what is felt in the chest.
People feel it in the pocket.
Yeah, that too. But, you know, the chakras exist, and all 7 chakras are focus points. They are the singularities through which man connects with the eternal virtues and the things that he knows he's here to do. You know, you've got the navel, the stomach, the gut, the feeling of hunger, the need to sustain, the internal pineal gland, the third eye. You know, these places where you focus, the throat even, the heart and the chest. You know, the hands. These are all places where sensations are. And we put ourselves into that moment, into that place. If you pick something up and you touch it, you're in your hands as well as in your mind. Yeah, it's about being able to rebalance the whole body, bring everything together as one complete human being, instead of a disjointed, disconnected person with a disconnected, disjointed government. Put yourself back in order and government will naturally have to follow. If every human being is just in themselves, in order, how could anything else exist?
You should read the Republic.
I will do.
Yeah.
I will
That's
do.
lip service like that.
No, I will do.
Yeah, you won't do. First of all, you'll already forget the name of it.
The Republic.
Right. Secondly, you won't look it up.
Don't be so sure. A lot of people assume that about
Read
me.
me.
Oh, if you got it, yeah, I'll have it. Cool. Right, so I think we'll wrap it up there. The next level is going to be basically,
Actually, you should
it's not going to be an analytical critic. It's going to be more of a step-by-step, do this and let's try and get your life back on track, back where it should be, back in the master seat. You know, you're the captain of your own ship and you need to be put back in your rightful place. You know, the mutiny has ended. Yeah, mutiny of self. That's almost like self-mutilation. Let's not mutiny against self anymore. Let's allow the ideas and the things that we want to do to prosper. And that is done by supporting things that are positive and becoming a part of something and joining with something. You know, when you join with something, you're going to have to give up some of your ego to do that. You're going to have to find something worthwhile, though, to join with. I've got my ideas and I hope people will help me with them. they're welcome to be a part of it, and I also hope to be working with people on their ideas, as long as it's positive and it brings prosperity and fruitfulness and happiness and joy. That's what it's about.